Welcome to This Explainer. Let's jump right in. We are breaking down a real-world case study of a freelance contract failure. Today, we're looking at actual chat logs to help you spot toxic client behaviors before it's too late. It is a really fascinating look at how a project slowly unravels.
We've all been there, right? You land an interview for a promising new gig, the work seems like a perfect fit for your skills, but a few strange client behaviors in the chat make you pause. The question is always, should you ignore them? Should you give them the benefit of the doubt and just assume it's all going to smooth out once the contract actually starts?
The short answer is absolutely not. Just don't. And today we're going to examine exactly why through a series of what we're calling red flag flashcards. These are pulled directly from actual project chat logs between a native German freelance annotator and an AI client team.
Act 1. The pre-contract warning signs.
Okay, let's dive into this. How a client treats you in the negotiation phase is a perfect preview of the job itself. Our first major red flag is the impossible standard. During onboarding, the client demanded a sprint mode speed metric called 2.5x TPT. Basically, for a 10-second audio clip, the freelancer had a maximum of 25 seconds to listen, catch subtle pronunciation errors, label intonation issues, evaluate naturalness, and hit submit. It's wild. It's a metric that fundamentally forces rushed, machine-like work from a human expert.
Notice the immediate clash of values here. The native expert freelancer clearly explained that catching subtle Swiss-German intonation errors requires meticulous listening and, well, more time. But the client pushed back, prioritizing rapid first-impression labeling over granular quality. They essentially asked the expert to ignore their own expertise just to hit an arbitrary speed target.
Let's move to the next flashcard and see how this builds. Because right after the freelancer stood their ground on needing time to do quality work, we hit the second pre-contract warning sign, the immediate lowball attempt. This is a classic negotiation tactic that tests your boundaries right out of the gate.
The context here is critical. The freelancer had just detailed how their $25 hourly rate was already a discount from their standard $30 rate. They offered this specifically because the client promised a dedicated 20-hour weekly focus. But literally moments after this justification was made, the client fired back with, "Can you make it as $22? It completely ignored the freelancer's reasoning and value.
And our final pre-contract red flag popped up when the client aggressively pushed a second, entirely unrelated project onto the freelancer. Before the original annotation tasks had even commenced, the client was asking this solo freelancer to suddenly become a recruiter. They wanted them to build a 30 to 40 member community for voice recordings, offering $80 a pair. It is massive scope creep and a massive distraction. The crucial takeaway from Act 1 is this. If they don't respect your expertise, your time, and your boundaries during the interview, they absolutely won't respect them during the job.
Act 2. Post-contract reality check.
So the freelancer held firm, got their $25 rate, and signed the contract. But those early warning signs, they morphed into operational nightmares. This perfectly illustrates the bait and switch. The whole reason the freelancer accepted a discounted rate was the promise of a reliable, steady 20 hours of work per week. The reality? That workload quickly evaporated into just 5 to 7 hours of sporadic, unpredictable task batches. The queue would just sit empty, completely destroying the freelancer's ability to plan their weekly schedule around this client.
And that empty queue feeds right into our next issue, the billing trap. When you're working sparse, unpredictable hours, every single minute counts. But what happens when the tools break or the guidelines contradict themselves? Well, in this project, the client introduced a clever little concept they called grace time.
According to the chat logs, the freelancer accurately logged 26 minutes of essential time outside the primary annotation tool. What were they doing? They were communicating with the client, troubleshooting technical issues, and typing up detailed linguistic breakdowns to explain why the client's German grammar scripts were flawed. Real, necessary work. The client refused to pay for this, labeling mandatory technical and communicative work as unpaid grace time. If you aren't in their specific tool clicking buttons, they argued, you aren't working.
Act 3. The final straw.
After enduring impossible speed demands, disappearing hours, and unpaid communication, we reached the climax. The final breakdown happened over a bizarre 3-day timeline. On Wednesday afternoon, after a full week of absolutely zero tasks and complete silence, the freelancer politely messages the client, suggesting they close the contract since his schedule is filling up with other reliable work. Crickets. No response. On Thursday afternoon, taking matters into his own hands, the freelancer officially ends the contract on the platform. Then comes Friday night.
when we look at the actual exchange, the disconnect is just staggering. First, there's the logical, professional Wednesday message warning of the schedule change. Then, the system notification right below it, Pascal Helfer ended the contract on Thursday at 1:10 p.m. And yet, the client pops back up the very next day.
At 8 p.m. on a Friday, completely oblivious to the Wednesday message and completely ignoring the formal Thursday contract termination, the client drops this message into the chat. Please be prepared and keep your bandwidth available for the batch. They genuinely expected the freelancer to just sit around on a Friday night, keeping their weekend schedule hostage for a sudden, unpredictable batch of tasks for a contract that had already been canceled.
No way.
It is a mind-boggling lack of communication. And it brings us to a critical realization. Your time, your expertise, and your schedule are incredibly valuable. This whole explainer really shows exactly how small red flags in an interview explode into major boundary violations. Don't let bad clients hold your schedule hostage. So I'll leave you with this question. When those red flags start piling up, will you have the confidence to hit that end contract button and walk away?